Welcome to Wednesday's Words of Wisdom from the farm. And as you can see, we're on location of the greatest fair, the greatest show on earth, the Brigden Fair. And our bus used to drive right down here as they were assembling the rides, and all of us would have our heads out the window screaming and cheering as they constructed the rides. And right here would be the scrambler. And right here was the tilt-a-whirl. And over here was the bumper cars. And at this end was the greatest ride, the greatest fair ride ever to hit any fair, the zipper. And as we walk over here, we see this is where the bleachers were, and they moved them in now. And there's the track, and there's tractor pulls and stunt drivers, and all kinds of things took place right here on this track. But one of the coolest things that took place on this track was the Jack Russell races. And it's one of my fondest memories. We brought my Bruno, he would never raced before, to this fair. And the grandstands were full of people. And they had a little box, and they put the dogs in them, and they ran a scented fur in front of them. Then they flipped the boxes, and they had to run down, and we'd be at the far end, and there was just a hole in the straw bales for one dog to get through, and that was the winner. And running heat after heat after heat, Bruno had won all 3 races. And Whipper, who was the person who ran the track, her dog, had won all theirs. They hadn't yet met. And the announcer zeroed in on the fact that Bruno was from Brigden, and he started to call him Brigden Bruno. And the crowd got right into it. They were chanting Bruno, Bruno. And the announcer said, at this time we're going to go Whipper 1-on-1 versus Bruno for our grand champion. And he asked the person who ran the course what she thought. And she said, Whipper has never lost a race. He may be the fastest dog in Canada. As they put the dogs in, you could cut the intensity in the air. And as they flipped them open, the dogs were dead even. I watched, and all of a sudden, Bruno broke out into elongated stride and pulled away and ran through the bales. And I grabbed Bruno. Come here, Jenny. I grabbed Bruno, and I jumped into the crowd so that the crowd could experience Brigden Bruno. And I held Bruno through like I had won the Stanley Cup. And as you can see, I got my Leaf jersey on. I hope they get to hoist the cup. There's been some disappointment over the years. But I ran through the crowd, hoisting Bruno as everyone cheered. I felt like I was on top of the mountain. Good girl, Jenny. But you know what? The reality is there's mountains and there's valleys. And there's a conclusion to the story that happened the following year, which I have to speak on Sunday, and you'll hear the conclusion. But you know, as much as I felt on the mountain, there are valleys too. Some of us don't like going through valleys. The Bible says in Psalms 121, I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Those mountains are great. But you know, we hit valleys. My hunting crew experienced the greatest hunting year we ever had, the most successful year, and just on the heels of that, my cousin, our leader of our crew, we just lost him last week. And this hat's a tribute to him. It's hard. Feel like that we're going through that valley. Don't understand, have all kinds of questions. But sometimes we need to go through valleys and we don't understand why. I don't have all the answers, but I do know through the mountains and through the valleys, we can have Jesus by our side, and he has the strength to take us through. And that's Wednesday's Words of Wisdom from the farm. Take care. God bless.